take me home, take me on a ride. I got a good feeling about the colors lighting up your eyes. Take me home, take me to the sky. I got a good feeling. Tell me the only thing you are is mine now. I got a good feeling. I got a good feeling. Good feeling. I got a good feeling.
I'm Blanche.
I'm LaRonda.
Welcome to episode 5 of Blind Grace. Today we're going to be talking about growing our own. So as we mentioned on some of the other episodes, we talked about the shortage of orientation mobility specialists, as well as teachers of the visually impaired. So we're going to talk a little bit more of kind of like the behind the scenes and give you a little bit deeper dive into, the profession as a whole. So here in Louisiana, I came from Lafayette. That's where I was born and raised. So that's where my undergrad is from. And there is a pretty big population of deafblind over there. Affiliated Blind Louisiana was my very first home. And so I have been doing a lot of behind the scenes with the board, with you, with everyone else, really just trying to grow our own. And Mr. Lynn Blanchard, who was my very first boss, he still talks about how, homegrown, he calls me homegrown, and then I had to spread my wings and fly away and come to Baton Rouge. And so we want to kind of bring that back. And so we've been really, really working behind the scenes to start a program over at UL Lafayette, but really make it a little bit different. And so I have been pretty fortunate in that, at Little Rock, Arkansas, we were able to make our own canes and stuff.
Right.
But some of, one of the other people who has had a huge impact on my life is Lynn Gotro. And so he is like the cane making guru. And so he has taught me how to take canes apart, put them back together, do all the things. I mean, I used to pretend I didn't know what I was doing and just throw them in the bucket so he would fix them later. But we want to make this program different. Yeah. We want to be able to focus and teach people how to interact with deafblind individuals. That's a whole nother ball game.
It is.
Depending on their level of vision or level of hearing. We want to work with the multi-handicap kids in wheelchairs. I've learned a lot from Scott Crawford. He's another one of my mentors. And so those of y'all that may not know Scott, he's at Affiliated Blind in Louisiana, but he also works with I Can Connect, and he does a lot of the deafblind population. And then also we want to do with, not just what we call the vanilla blind. So a lot of times what will happen, people just think the visual impairment is the only thing that's going on. We've got to
Plethora of things.
Right. We got to think bigger outside of the box, what works for them, and so those are some of the things that we truly, when we talk about growing our own, we want to be able to educate and get more people into the field. And so a little bit more about like what we do. So obviously my undergrad is in child and family studies. And so that is where I started. And then went to get my master's in Little Rock, Arkansas, which you did later too.
Yes.
So, what does it truly involve to be able to start from scratch? Like, what do you have to do? So you go through the programs. A lot of these programs are online, and then you're going to spend the summers under the blindfold. Now, I can tell you, when 20 years ago, when I started in this profession, I mean, that was really one of the first times I had really left home. You know what I'm saying? And they left me here at Arkansas School for the Blind, and I just kind of had to find my way, but I found some pretty amazing people. Mama Trout is one of the ones that I still keep in touch with. And so it's funny because you had people that were still walking through phases of life.
Right.
You had some people that had done something else. A lot of times what will people happen is they may be a TVI, which is the teacher of the visually impaired. And it may be a physical therapist, it may be an OT, it may be somebody that has never even heard of the field that goes back into that.
Right.
And so you spend the summers, and then you go under the blindfold. And I'm talking not just going under the blindfold, like you're eating under the blindfold, you're crossing major intersections, and one of my memories I still remember is being in the mall, like in the middle of Arkansas, being in the mall, and I'm down one of those anchor stores, and here I am, with my blindfold on, and he's asking me which direction I'm facing. I have no clue. I have no clue, And so, for those of y'all listening, you're probably like, oh, I don't know about that. But it is really, for me, it was such a rewarding experience. It just kind of opens up your eyes to what you can do and like what we can teach and what we can accomplish every single day. And so it's a very, very rewarding profession. Did I think, that I was going to get into it a long time ago? Absolutely not. And I think you and I both,
didn't even know it existed.
Yes. And I do think that, as you talked about, there's still that bigger and better purpose, but really we're trying to get to more people that maybe are in high school or in college and still don't know what they want to do and be able to get more people.
Yeah, I think that's a huge issue. Like, there's so many people, whenever you're meeting anybody new, like, I think people's favorite question to ask is, oh, like, what do you do? And I'm always like, oh, I'm an O&M. Well, what's that? I'm an orientation mobility specialist for the blind and visually impaired.
Yeah.
It's a mouthful.
Yes.
And they're like, but what does that mean, right? So then I explain, like, oh, I teach blind and visually impaired individuals how to navigate their world using a white cane.
Right.
And they're like, well, what does that look like, right? And you get all these questions. And what I have found or come to understand is people don't even know it's a thing.
Nope.
To be interested in it and explore it for there to be more. I often describe O&M as a dying field. And it's not dying because people don't need it. It's dying because people don't know about it. So since people don't know about it, now we're lacking service providers. So you don't have enough people to supply a very needed skill, right? I think that, like you were saying, it's extremely rewarding. As you know, I did my first practicum with you all, but then I also did an internship in Arizona at with the VA. And something that I really found, especially with that population, is a lot of times something like O&M can give people their life back.
Yeah.
Like, truly give people their life back. There was one guy that came to me. He was one of like my first or second clients that they put on my list that I was doing totally by myself. And I remember for him, he had glaucoma, I want to say.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but that's what I want to say. But they had done surgeries on surgeries to try to like stop him from losing the vision. Then he had issues with scar tissue, so he was still losing more vision rapidly until he was finally like, forget it.
Right.
I don't want any more surgeries. I'm going to learn to live my life with my vision as it is. If it gets worse, I will learn to live that way. And like, I will never forget his second O&M lesson. Because by his second O&M lesson, he was like, LaRonda, I'm so happy that somebody found me and they brought me here because I never thought I would even be able to walk to my mailbox again.
Right.
So understanding that you truly are giving people their life back or giving them an opportunity to have a more fulfilled life. So the biggest problem is people don't see this.
Yep.
People don't know what it is. People don't know that it's an option. So many PTs have told me, LaRonda, if I didn't know that was the thing, I'd done that into the PT. Because so much of it crosses over. Like I tell people, O&M, you need PT, you need OT. Like you need a little bit of everything in there to really make it happen. So the fact that it's not even a visible field is probably the first issue off cuff.
Right.
And figuring out how to make it more visible, like you said, getting involved in high school fairs. So being able to go down and say, hey, have you ever heard of this? This is what it looks like. Going to schools, different things like that, and being able to say, oh, this is what it is, all those different things.
Right. So speaking of PT, one of the most exciting things that I've been doing over the last couple years is actually going in with the physical therapy students. And that kind of started, there was a PT that came and she was part-time at the school and she didn't know anything about the VI world. And we worked pretty closely with a couple of the kiddos and it just opened her eyes and it taught her so much. And so what I've been fortunate to do is every 6 months I go and I put them under the blindfold. But it's not just the blindfold. We take out the walkers, we take the crutches, we take the wheelchairs. And so it's just a really neat eye-opening experience because it allows them, what's going to happen because like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of people that lose their vision later in life and they're learning how to walk again. So not only are they learning how to walk again, but then you put this cane in their hand and it's like, okay, now what they do?
Exactly.
What do they do? And so it's been pretty neat to kind of, that relationship and that partnership with Fran, you being able to get to the physical therapy students. And like you're saying, there's been many conversations after those classes. It's like, why didn't I know about this? And so that's another one of our goals is to really get out to the kids that are younger. Even our volunteer groups, a lot of our high school groups, one of their things that we've always done in 9th grade is they come and they always do our dances, our fun, our field days, all the things. And so we put them under the blindfold and we give them a cane early on because it allows them to have those conversations, but also know how to guide them if they need to go somewhere or kind of help and advocate in a situation whenever they help us out. So that's been really neat to kind of see it unfold.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like, I think that's what like bridges the gap, right? Like, these kids, before they came to school, probably have never even come across a visually impaired person before. So now, by them coming here and learning necessary skills and techniques on how they can help someone, it also helps them be a better advocate.
Right.
And even with you going out to frame you, it's so necessary because so many things that are taught in the PT's world, they change when you put a cane in. So now it can be like, wait, before you teach that, come and see it first.
Right.
So understanding that the way that you previously did that will not work here.
Right.
So you may have to switch up even what you're used to doing or what's the norm to make sure it fits a visually impaired visually impaired student or client. So just understanding that. So partnerships like that are definitely necessary because things change when you bring in different conditions now.
Right.
So,
and that was kind of one of the things why we decided, with this podcast was to be able to get to more people, to educate more people about what the visually impaired community is all about. Not just here in Louisiana, nationwide, but also it's like we said, a dying field in that people don't know enough about it.
Exactly.
So we want to get the word out. We want to talk about more people. One of the things we didn't really talk about because neither one of you you and I are not actually a true teacher of the visually impaired.
Correct.
And so, and we say that we do all the things that the teachers do. We just don't have the education background to be able to tap that in.
I also don't do Braille, friend. Sorry.
Okay, well, I do Braille. She doesn't do the Braille.
I don't do Braille, friend.
And so I have a funny story. I had a kid, I told him I read Braille with my eyes, and he actually thought I put the Braille up to my eyeballs, and I was like, no, that would probably hurt, so we didn't do all that. But that is still one of the funny stories. And I was like, no, I can physically see it. And it's funny because, these kids, some of them are so innocent. They just, they don't know any better. And so, but yeah, so the teacher of the visually impaired, so that's another thing is, if you're a teacher, or going into a teaching field, and bless you if you're a teacher, is learning and being able to take those extra classes.
Right.
And so, yes, we do the Braille. We do kind of the low vision aspect of it. And so learning how to make those modifications, not just a Braille, like learning, font size or color contrast or things like that. And so, that's kind of what our next episode is going to be about, accessibility and stuff like that and things like that. But it truly, that is a profession too, where, even if you were a teacher, and I can't tell you how many times people come to the school or they meet a kid that's visually impaired and they want to go back into that field and they want to become. So you can actually get the certification you can add, which is some of the things that we're talking about, is growing our own and adding those credentials. And so you can continue to teach in the classroom, but just at a more specialized.
Because if you're already certified, I want to say it's only like 4 or 5 more classes that you would have to do. It's really not that bad, especially if you are already SPED certified. It's really not that bad at all. So just understanding how we were talking before about how purposes change.
Right.
You are not tied into anything. You can always go back. I think that when I was doing my program at UALR, I think I was the youngest one in the program. Everybody else was older. They literally had been in other careers and decided to do this. I had a guy who was a vocal rehab specialist. And he was like, I wanted to still work with the VA. He's like, I wanted to be able to supply more of a direct service versus sitting behind the desk. He said, I saw somebody doing this once about the VA. And I was like, yo, that seems cool. Yeah. Why not? You'll be surprised how many people were counselors that didn't cross over into this, because I always tell people the very first thing I have to do is see a person. I have to build a relationship with them before anything else can happen, because if you don't trust me, you won't even cross a hallway unless you cross a street. Right. So the amount of people that actually can go from counseling into this is absolutely amazing. Yeah. So many things cross over here. I feel like we truly are that middleman that nobody sees.
Right. And two, I was listening to a podcast not that long ago, and it was talking about being lost and just kind of, not knowing what to do. And the episode was about volunteering, and that truly can change your life. I mean, I can't tell you how many stories of somebody has come to volunteer and it kind of completely changes the trajectory of their life and where they want to go. And so if you are truly at a point in your life where you're feeling lost and you don't know what you want to do and you're at a crossroads, I would suggest going to volunteer. And it may be with a local school, it may be with a special needs population, it may be with the elderly. You just don't know. So, but we'll go ahead and end that episode now. Thank y'all for joining and see y'all next time.
Bye, guys.